But Brandon, let's move on into a topic that this might affect the college football playoff, but really we're going to take it a level lower right before the college football playoff. There's a big matchup going on this weekend in the Big Ten. It is going to be between number 12 Michigan and number 15 Wisconsin. Michigan sitting 5-1 overall. They're undefeated in the Big Ten. Wisconsin's 4-1 overall, undefeated in the Big Ten. I want to ask you this, and I'm just going to be frank with it like I always am. Wisconsin-Michigan this weekend. How is this game going to affect, in your mind, the Big Ten title race?
Well, I think that what it will do ultimately is it will keep Michigan in it. This is a win. With a win. This is a big game for the Michigan Wolverines. I think it's actually bigger for Michigan because I don't want to completely count out Wisconsin, but Michigan is still in it. Wisconsin, with that loss to BYU, that couldn't have been more devastating. It couldn't have been. I mean, not just because of the loss, but to who you lost to. You lost to an unranked BYU out of like nowhere. No one was expecting it type of thing. And while a Clemson might be able to rebound from a loss against a Syracuse or a Pitt late in the season, a loss to a BYU team early on in the year when you still have to play Michigan, you'll still have to play Penn State. That is devastating. It's really hard to take something like that. So the Michigan Wolverines, this is basically a game for their lives. If they don't win it, they are done. Michigan already has a loss as well. With them being 5-1, they've been playing some pretty good football. A bit of a scare on the road at Northwestern. Northwestern, they have been a sneaky football team. Sneaky good, of course. But the Michigan Wolverines, they have got to come out. They have got to start fast. That is one problem with this that I have with this Michigan team. They have been starting slow. They've been very slow. They were slow in the Northwestern game. They were slow in the Maryland game. They have been slow to start things off offensively. That is something that you don't want to have happen come this weekend. You want to be able to get off to a fast start. You want to have Shea Patterson be able to click on all cylinders from the word go, and you want to be able to get out to a quick lead on Wisconsin and then not look back.
The thing I'm looking up, and it's basically the point that you made with the Wisconsin Badgers, because their loss to, when you look at it, their loss to BYU is not a good loss, I would say. And the thing that you made me think of is, and I'll do it here live on the podcast, is has any team lost to someone like BYU and overcome that kind of a loss? Because, I mean, when you look at it, you had Oregon. I'm looking year by year. So the first year, 2014, 2015, Oregon had a loss to Arizona, which some could say is kind of like BYU. I mean, Oregon was the number 2 team at that time. Arizona, I don't believe, was ranked, but they overcome a loss to Arizona October 2nd. Ohio State that year overcame, I think their loss was Virginia Tech that year. Yeah, Virginia Tech. That was the Broxton Miller game where you had the Madden spin. You had Ole Miss was your loss to Alabama, and then Florida State didn't have a single loss until Oregon.
Well, Ricky, I can tell you 2 easy ones. 2016 Clemson they lost to Pittsburgh 43-42. They, end up making the playoff that year. And then they actually end up winning the playoff that year, don't they? And then in 2017, just last year, they lose 27-24 to Syracuse. They go back to the playoff. They lose to Alabama, the team that ended up going on and winning the championship just a year ago. So it can be overcome, but a team can do it. But the Wisconsin Badgers aren't the team that's going to be able to do that. That's the whole problem. Well, a Clemson Tiger team can do that, but Wisconsin can't.
I'm not going to, and I'm taking can and can't out of it. Of course, we're going to make our picks
I'm not.
later in the podcast. I'm looking at it as this way, is when it comes to Wisconsin, I feel like Wisconsin needs it, although for both teams, if Michigan loses, their hopes are done. 2-loss team ain't getting in. Badgers, same thing. 2-loss team, you're not getting in. For the Badgers, though, I'm going to go on and say that I think it is more important for the Badgers than it is for Michigan to win the game. And the reason why I'm saying that is and you can debate this because there's other ways you can say that it's more important than Michigan because of all the struggles that Harbaugh has had this year and to kind of silence the doubters. But I look at Wisconsin and I go, if Michigan loses this game, they're not going to get to the Big Ten title game, or they still might have a chance. They've got Ohio State at the end of the year. You win that one, you still stay tied with Ohio State. You get into the Big Ten title game. With Wisconsin, you lose this game, and then basically you're at Northwestern, you're at Penn State later on in the year, you're at Purdue. You basically have to win out mainly against Northwestern and Purdue to even try to win your side of the Big Ten, where both Purdue and Northwestern right now only have one loss. And I know there may be some people that are saying, hey, Ricky, even look at an Iowa, because if Iowa stays one loss, their only loss was to Wisconsin. If they only stay one loss the rest of the year, Wisconsin loses to Michigan, loses to a Penn State, loses to a Northwestern, Iowa could even be ranked higher or in the standings be higher than Wisconsin. So I feel like with Wisconsin, in order to even just get to the Big Ten title game, you got to win this game. If they don't win this game, it's not impossible for them to get to the Big Ten title game, but I would swing the percentages more in favor of a Northwestern who's playing a little bit on the hotter side of the football compared to a Wisconsin who would have just lost to a very good Michigan team.
Well, see here, Ricky, here's the thing, is that if Michigan loses, their chances of any playoff or Big Ten title game, it's out the window. They've lost then 2 games overall, and they've lost a game in the conference.
College football playoff, I'll say yes. The Big Ten title, I'll say no, because then they could still win out and make that title game.
No, there's no chance they would win out then at that point, because if you've got to play Penn State, which they do, and then they've got to play Ohio State, they are not winning both of those games. I can guarantee that. Check it right now. They are not winning both of those games.
I'm not saying they would. I'm just saying there's a chance.
Sure. I mean,
So
there's a chance that you and I could win the lottery of $470 million tomorrow, but it's not going to happen. So that's the same thing. It's like saying the Michigan Wolverines, with complete confidence, will go on and they will beat Penn State at home and they will beat Ohio State on the road. It's not going to happen. So it's bigger for Michigan because it keeps them in it. For Wisconsin, if they lose, they've still got a better chance than Michigan would of making the Big Ten title game. They do. Michigan does not. Michigan is really in a bad spot because Michigan would have to play Penn State and Ohio State, like I've already mentioned, whereas Wisconsin would only have to play a team like Penn State. Now, I know that you had mentioned, like the Iowas and stuff like that being able to possibly pop up. The Badgers don't have anything else against Iowa. Obviously, they already beat Iowa, so that rolls well for Wisconsin. But what they do still have is they do still have a date on the road at Northwestern. That's going to be the biggest one outside of Penn State. But then you've got Purdue. They should take care of business against Purdue. Again, Purdue's on a winning streak. They should be better. You would think at the end of the season, maybe. Rutgers, I would believe they beat them. I would believe they beat Illinois and Minnesota. It's you look at that Northwestern game and then Penn State, but Wisconsin would still have a chance. So let's say that they would beat Northwestern. They lose to Penn State. Well, the loss to Penn State, that's Penn State's on the other side. Penn State's on the east. Wisconsin, you're still on the west. That's a another loss for you. There's 2 losses. Let's say Iowa loses again, Northwestern loses again, but Wisconsin, you beat Northwestern, let's say you do. You've already beat Iowa. You still would be at the top there in the West. Ultimately, Wisconsin would be in a better position than Michigan is with a loss. Wisconsin is in a better position than Michigan is with a loss come this weekend. Michigan, I'm telling you, Ricky, it is so hard for me to even imagine that Michigan, if they do anything from this game, that they would beat both Penn State and Ohio State, especially with the Ohio State game being on the road. It's with what we've seen from the Ohio State Buckeyes this year, it's really hard to believe that Michigan could slow them. The Buckeyes, I'll say, they didn't, but Penn State had a very, very, very good chance of beating them. Right now, Penn State could be flopped with where Ohio State is right now.
Yeah.
Very, very reasonable chance that if anyone who watched that game saw...
4th and 5, right? It was 4th and 5?
Well, it was 4th and 5, but it was also... That was we talked about that.
That's the microcosm of the game.
Yes, at the end of the game, you look at that and you go, really? It just is. It's a topper for really what ended up being a poor game.
It's what
by
everyone
Penn
is going to
State.
focus on.
Exactly, and while they shouldn't, they will. For Penn State, what needed to happen is they needed to put their foot on the throat of Ohio State and say,
kind of like what we said before the game even happened.
kind of, but that's what Penn State needed to do. They needed to take advantage of an Ohio State team that came out slow in the first half, and they did. They came out slow in the first half, but Penn State could not capitalize on it. And what happened? Big Brother beat you again. So I look at Penn State being a better team than Michigan. If Penn State wasn't able to do it, I don't see how Michigan would be able to do it. I understand the rivalry, Michigan and Ohio State and what's happened there, but I mean, I think you could look just as much to the rivalry of Penn State and Ohio State, what's happened the last couple of years. I don't think that Michigan is in a very good spot. If they do not win this game this weekend, Wisconsin would certainly look better than Michigan would. Neither one of these teams, I don't believe, is going to go to the playoff, but one of them has, while slim, hopes of possibly being able to still win the Big Ten title game.
And another reason why I'm going to say, like, all right, so I'm going to use the same logic that you used for Michigan, because I've been using the mindset of I'm looking at this one game. Like, a loss in this game to Michigan doesn't mean they're automatically going to lose to Penn State and Ohio State, because they still have to play those games. Same thing like Wisconsin with a Northwestern and a Purdue. I'm going to use your similar logic where you said Michigan loses this game. There's no way they're beating Penn State. There's no way they're beating Ohio State.
I'm saying there's no way that they win both.
Yeah.
They could win one, but there's no way they win both.
Let me flip this then and use that on the side of Wisconsin and why you could say that this is important, most important for Wisconsin, because I'm looking at individual schedules. I looked at Iowa's. I'm writing them off right away because they've already lost to Wisconsin. Even if Wisconsin lost here and either lost to a Purdue or a Northwestern, Iowa's got to play Penn State at Happy Valley. If it was in Iowa, maybe a different story, because we know, ask Ohio State, how Iowa plays at home. With it being in Happy Valley, I think that Iowa will have more losses than Wisconsin. So I'm clicking that X button. Their tab is off my computer. Next is Purdue. They play Ohio State on the 20th. I just X that tab off my computer. I don't need to look at them anymore. Northwestern is the key. And the reason why I say that is we've talked to coaches in our college career. And at the college we went to, mainly the basketball coach, he was a guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, would always say didn't believe in momentum from game to game. What happened in one game doesn't mean you're going to win the next one or win the other one. However, I'm kind of one that looks at it and goes, yeah, but if you win that one, you're feeling good about yourselves heading into that next game. At least there's that. And the thing you can look at here, even if you believe in momentum or not, so let's say Wisconsin loses this weekend against Michigan. They would have lost in Ann Arbor, which, to be honest, they have not won in Ann Arbor since 2010. However, they've only played twice since 2010. Since 2016, it's been Michigan won in Ann Arbor. Last year, Wisconsin won in Madison, but usually Michigan wins in Ann Arbor in this matchup. But let's say Wisconsin loses. Then they play an Illinois team in Madison, which they'll probably win that game, before heading into Evanston, Illinois, to play Northwestern. Whereas Northwestern gets Nebraska, then they go to Rutgers before hosting Wisconsin. To me, I look at it and go, Wisconsin needs that just to feel good about themselves heading into that Northwestern game, because Northwestern's a team right now. I wasn't high on them last week. I mean, they were 1-3, and I was like, whatever. They're not what we thought they were. They beat a struggling Michigan State team. This could be the part of the year where they turn their season around, and then let's say they win the next two. They're 3-3. Use a big win against Wisconsin to catapult themselves into the top of the West, to where, yeah, at the end of the day, you're sitting there going, but Ricky, it all depends on what you do in that Wisconsin-Northwestern game. But then Northwestern, if they win that one and let's say lose to Iowa on the 9th, Wisconsin would still be out of the tiebreaker because of that loss to Michigan. Whereas if they didn't have that loss to Michigan, doesn't matter, we didn't lose to Northwestern. We still only have one loss, which was to Northwestern. Northwestern would have two. So, yes, there's situations where we're looking at would have, could have, what could happen, but we got to look at all these options when it comes to what this game could mean moving forward, because if Wisconsin loses, could mean we don't get Ohio State versus Wisconsin. But if Michigan loses, it means that we might not get Michigan at all in the Big Ten title game, because they're 3-0 in the conference since losing to Notre Dame to start the year.
Ricky, at the end of the day, this is an important game for both of these teams.
Yeah,
there's going to be
we're splitting hedges here.
We definitely are, and that's our job to do it. But I think that when you look at this, the loser of this game, their route to make the Big Ten title game, certainly their route to the playoffs is done. Mm-hmm. But to make the Big Ten title game is going to be the loser. It's going to be it will be difficult. Mm-hmm. I mean, it will be difficult even for Wisconsin. And I'm not saying that when I say that I think Wisconsin is better suited to be able to do it, but I think they're better suited to be able to do it because they're on the other side. Mm-hmm. You know, if Michigan,
the West is weaker.
Yes, and if Michigan loses here, mm-hmm. they're gonna be in an incredibly difficult spot. Mm-hmm. They would be in an incredibly difficult spot because then they would have to go on, certainly beat Penn State, and then have to beat Ohio State to be able to then have the tiebreaker there. Both them and Ohio State, most likely, let's say, it comes down to that very last game, have just one loss. Mm-hmm. But Michigan would have beat Ohio State, so Michigan rises above them, gets the win there, and they will be on the side from the East. A scenario like that, there's a lot that has to happen in this. But this Michigan team, what this Michigan team has to do mm-hmm. is they have to rise up. They have to start, and I don't want to say start playing better, because I don't necessarily think that that's fair for a team that is 5-1 and ranked 12th overall, and you've won their last 5 games. But now it's time that you have to play a ranked opponent. The last time they played a ranked opponent was on the road at Notre Dame. They lost 24-17 in game 1. And people mm-hmm. will say, well, Brandon, that's game 1. You can't necessarily judge them off of one game where now we're into week 7. Mm-hmm. So I believe that what Michigan needs to do is they need to come out, they need to have a very good defensive performance. They have to put on a Harbaugh-type performance that you would see from a Harbaugh defense. Mm-hmm. A hard nose, making big plays, getting big sacks, taking down the quarterback, rushing the quarterback, not allowing Hornibrook to be comfortable in the pocket. That's what this Michigan defense needs to be able to do. And then Shea Patterson, he needs to be able to do the things that Michigan wanted him to come over for. That's make the big plays, get some big throws, complete and convert on some big 3rd or 4th downs, and win them the ball game. And Michigan, if this is a true Michigan game, they win the game on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they could possibly do this weekend. But that defense needs to be able to come alive and do that. And the offense needs to wake up before halftime. If they do not, that allows this Wisconsin team to be in the game, certainly for at least the whole first half. And who knows what they might be able to do, especially if the offense isn't awake. Is the defense awake? That's what needs to happen here. And that's kind of what I alluded to at the very start of this conversation, is that Michigan started slow lately. They can't this weekend.
Well, this is where I'm going to turn it on to you guys. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. We're going to make our picks later in the podcast. If you're on YouTube, you can actually check out our picks video where we do have the Wisconsin-Michigan game in there. But let us know what you guys think about this game and what it's going to mean for the entire race for the Big Ten title and the Big Ten championship game down below in that comment section.